Hi, I'm Kim Bennett, Chief Legal Officer and Brand Strategist here at WWCode.
Hi, I'm Temitope Adediran. I'm a software engineer at WWCode. And we're celebrating Women Who Code Turns 10 and Black History Month.
Yeah, so excited to be celebrating it and excited to be joined by you, Temi, to have a conversation about our journey. So I guess I'd first love to, get to know why and what made you become an engineer and a little bit about your trajectory in becoming one in Nigeria.
Yeah, sure. That's a really, really good question to ask because my career journey is one that has really inspired so many women here in Nigeria to venture into tech. Interestingly, because I didn't study engineering or any computer-related courses. And here I'm doing what I love, building software for women who code. So I started my journey, working as a business development executive with a real estate firm here in Nigeria when I read a blog post about two kids who learned how to code online. And in about 5 years of learning, they had built a web browser with which they started a tech company. And that got me really inspired. The blog where I read about the kids mentioned the website they started learning from. I think it's called codeacademy.com actually. I clicked on it at the time, very curious about how, they could learn engineer learn how to code online, because that was something that one needed to go to school to learn, and all of that. So seeing kids actually learn it, online got me inspired to learn something new, and then my journey started. Meanwhile, sorry about the noise in my background. I'm a mom, and that's one of the interesting parts of working remotely from home. Yeah, as I was saying, right, I started learning HTML and CSS on Code Academy after I learned about it from the kids who started learning to code from there, and I built a web browser, and their mom was able to start a company for them. And at the time I was looking for something new to do, and this seemed like an interesting venture, right, to go into. So I started learning HTML and CSS, and about a week I was done, and I was like, if this is really what software engineering is about, then I think I could really do this, right? But little did I know that was barely the tip of the iceberg, right? I was enjoying the learning anyway, so I continued. Few weeks before I stumbled on Code Academy, at the real estate firm where I was working, because I was a go-to person for any tech-related challenges. One of my colleagues had sent me a link to consider joining an all-female coding bootcamp with Andela at the time. I'd said no at the time because I didn't know what coding was all about. So I didn't think it was something I could learn aside going to school, right? So I totally said no to that. But after going through that HTML and CSS course on Code Academy, and even, of course, in my naivety, I assumed maybe that was majorly what software engineering was about. So I decided to, consider pursuing web development full time. And then I went ahead to apply I clicked on the link she had shared for the off-meal bootcamp with Andela, and I applied for it. I think myself, not looking back, I think my journey is an interesting one, because at first it seemed like I stumbled on it, and then a lot of things, came on the way that helped me to further increase my interest in it. Like I said, after I applied for the bootcamp, I really decided that okay. I found out at the time that Andela was hiring smart Nigerians, was Africans actually. At the time, it was Nigeria and Kenya. And they were going to be putting, they're hiring top 1% smart individuals, and, putting us through guided learning to make us, even better, like a better software engineer. So learning software and also learning all the other soft skills required to learn. And after that learning, we get placed, to work with software teams, mostly in the US, because Andela HQ was in the US at the time. And I thought, okay, this is a really, really interesting opportunity, because not only do I get paid while learning, which means I could leave the real estate firm I was working at and really pursue it full time, because I would get paid to learn and also can pursue this as a full time endeavor. So I became even more intentional in my quest for knowledge. And I remember I would come home from the real estate job from the 9 to 5 at the time, and I would study. I would code in the evenings till very late in the night, up till 2 a.m. because I didn't have to. My resumption time every morning was 9 a.m. So I would code till very. In fact, sometimes I would literally, push myself to go to sleep because I was really enjoying the learnings, and I thought to myself, if this is what I'm going to be doing full time now, I think this could be really interesting. Anyway, those were the more basic. Of course, I mean, engineers understand that HTML and CSS is just really the start. Maybe I don't even know if to say it's even up to the start. But anyway, I kept on learning, and kept on. I mean, trying to get into pursuing this new career. And at the time, right, I later got into Andela after trying 3 times, right? At first, at the time when I just applied, I just started learning HTML and CSS, and then I realized, I think it also helped me understand how much more I needed to learn to further pursue this as a career. And I kept trying at each time, even when I didn't, when I almost made it through and I still didn't, I kept trying. And I think that experience is an interesting one that really tested my commitment and growth to really pursuing this newfound passion of mine as a career. At each stage, I kept learning and getting better. And here I am now. When Andela, I joined WWCode, and I'm now a software engineer with WWCode.
I love that. I love hearing also just like you said, the journey of you going from like deciding, well, let me see what it's like. I saw some kids doing it. Well, maybe I can, to then getting the confidence to go after things that maybe you thought you shouldn't do it. And you kept pursuing it. And like that passion and love is driving you. And I think a lot of times when we're on these journeys, sometimes we go away from our passions and our drives, but you just really leaned into it. And now, like you said, now you're here doing something you love that you could have stayed up all night doing, working 2 jobs doing, and instead now this could be your focus. And so I really love that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Great. All right. So tell me a little bit more about, the differences from working, remotely. So, I mean, we're in this world where you work remotely now because we're all experiencing this pandemic still, but remote was a part of what you decided to do anyway. I'd love to hear about, a little bit more about working remote, and maybe also just about the differences about working in Africa versus working, for a company headquartered in United States that also has an international presence. So I'd love to get some of your experiences around that too.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Majorly because the Andela model, the company I started working with, that got me that I started working as a software engineer with, had they were doing the remote model even before remote became a thing, right? And at the time, I think it was really helpful to me having that background, because I would we were put through some guided learnings, to help really learn the skills that are required for remote work. For example, a lot of times one needs to really over communicate because you are not in the same physical space with the team, so you're required to communicate as often as necessary, and also learn to collaborate, and also learning to use the digital tools that help to collaborate easily. For example, some of these platforms, the meeting platforms where all of this works. Now, for me, living in Africa and working with mostly US companies, mostly actually, the time zone has always been such that it literally changed my my work time frame in an interesting way that I really love. I used to love working. I still love working very late at night anyway, and because my own afternoon time is the morning time, with the team, I get to probably sleep into the mornings, then start my day a little late, and then actually start working a bit in the afternoon, and then work late into the night. Sometimes I, stop working around 8 p.m. my time, get to do other things, like, of course, work-life balance, attend to family, and then sometimes get back to work again, maybe sometimes around 10, 11, and then work a bit into, like, it was something I loved doing. So it was an easy way to help me find balance. And of course, because I also understood that I do, like I do not work very late in the time in the night when everywhere is quiet and all of that. So I was able to structure more important, deep, meaningful work around that time when there are no disturbance and all of that. And of course, as a mom, like I said, there are times when my kid needs some attention while working. So so it's something I've been able to find the balance too. And of course, working remotely here. I mean, I kind of begin to overemphasize the benefits of it. Of course, it has its own challenges, but it has its benefits as to also being able to attend to family, being there when, family, especially as a mom, basically.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, I think that's like, again, similar themes about really kind of designing the life that works with you. Like you said, you worked into the nighttime when you were coding, and now you are able to find the right work structure for you that aligns with some of the, the company that you're working with, but also allows for you to have that. I don't always love the word balance. I love more like flow or integration, because I don't think balance is a thing, but I love that that you said that. I don't know, similar for me, I will say in my journey, it was like it wasn't a traditional journey into the law either, right? Like I didn't actually desire to go to law school, and then I found myself in law school. I was in law school as a JD PhD student studying both law and psychology, and I thought I was probably going to lean more psychology, but then I ended up staying in the law, leaving my psych program, my PhD program, and just continue to kind of grow in that space. And I think where a lot of us are in the midst of this pandemic, and when a lot of us, we all are in the midst of this pandemic, which was really changing for me at the time when I came out of law school, which I cannot believe it's 15 years ago, but I'm in my 15th year practicing. We were right before the recession happened in the United States, which then had the global impacts as well. And so like that same kind of change, and for me, moving into tech wasn't where I started, right? Going to law wasn't where I started, but I always liked technology like you. I tested a ton of tech, and then wanting to be a lawyer that operated differently, that practiced differently. Technology was provided the ability to do that. And so after market crashed, and after I, where I'm like around 2010 time, I was thinking, well, how do I grow a practice, grow in my career, and take a hold of things when sometimes opportunities weren't always there? And technology really was like a foundational part of that. And so, I grew into, I would say, the tech space through testing tech, through loving tech, through wanting to like see how I can leverage tech to allow for me to live the life I wanted while still being able to move the legal industry in ways that I think it needed to move. So I think those are like, we have a lot of similarities in terms of like following things that interest us, maybe not going down the path that people always expect, but then, getting here eventually.
Interesting. So. That's an interesting question, because I think you pretty much answered a bit of that. I was actually gonna ask about, what drew you into tech and what inspired you to start your own law tech company. But yeah, I think you just want to share more about that, like what really like inspired you to start the tech company.
Yeah, I will say so. I became a co-founder of a tech company officially beginning of 2021. And we were talking in conversations a little bit before that. But I had a thought in the back of my head, like, what if I became a tech co-founder? What would that look like? It just was a thought. It wasn't like, maybe. I don't code. I can be a little dangerous with things, right? But definitely I would never say I code, but I'm dangerous, right? I built my own website, which again, right? Asterisk, I built, meaning I was on Squarespace. So I'm not trying to take away from all the amazing work that others do, right? But like, I was able to do little things. I was able to do, I grew up in the era where we were, where computers were still just like a new thing. And so I learned, basics. So, but in my legal career, one of the things that was really important to me was not to do law like others do law. Law is really very reactive. I wanted to be very proactive. And so in my industry, I one of the leaders in subscription legal services, which is kind of what it sounds like, right? We're in tech. We see SaaS companies. We see, the Netflix of the world. We see all things that are subscription and service-based. It really wasn't a thing. And in legal, definitely not a thing. So in 2010, around that time when I was kind of thinking through how do I grow my career, and I was doing traditional way of doing law, I thought, this doesn't work. And I said there had to be a better way. And so from that point, I started doing subscription legal services. Didn't have that name, but that's basically what I was doing. And fast forward, I always thought, well, what would it look like if I could do this via a tech platform? Because a lot of the basis of subscriptions is proactive services, but very process driven, leveraging technology so that you can, provide value at scale. And so I've always done it with the technology that was there. There was never like a quite right one. And then I was approached to become a co-founder at the end of 2020. And then 2021, I became a co-founder. And essentially it's basically what I've been doing in practice now in a tech platform. And so I thought about what it could look like, and that's what got me there. And now it's, same idea, like realizing your vision, or thinking through what something could be, and not being 100% sure, but following the path and letting your experiences drive you, and letting your passions drive you, and your commitment to the things that really matter to you. So I think that's what got me there. And it's really just the tech, not just, but it is a tech version of what I do in my practice, so that other lawyers right now, but even beyond that, service-based professionals really can scale through eliminating hourly billing. So that's long answer, but that's it.
Yeah, that's an interesting answer, because I mean, like you said, we seem to have a lot of similarities, right? Because I also got into tech because in a quest to be more and to do more, right? I mean, reading the story about those kids who, through learning to code online, started something new and different. I wanted to be that, I wanted to do that. And I think tech is one thing that gives that power to do and be anything you want to be. So it was just an easy and interesting choice, and I'm glad that, through tech, you've also been able to, be able to explore that, part of your vision and your dream. And yeah, that's an interesting thing to know.
Yeah.
Do you share?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to share about the cultural similarities and differences between some of the industries you worked with?
Yeah, I will say, there's similarities in that, companies go through similar growth trajectories. If you're serving clients, I think service-based, you see a lot of similarities, but I would say, like, if I think about legal and technology, it's just like in tech and legal, as women grow inside of legal, you see a lot of women leave, right? Most lawyers, or a good percentage, like half of lawyers that go into law school, people are going to law school are lawyers. But as you look at the growth, as you look at who are running the firms, or who are the GCs or the chief legal officers, or are in leadership positions across the legal industry, you see less and less women. You see less and less, Black and Indigenous people of color. It's just those same inherent issues that you see in technology appear in the law. And interestingly enough, in the intersection of legal tech is where my platform sits, which is like law and technology. It's amplified, right? So in terms of the work that we all need to do, in terms of like the similarities, the same reasons that people leave tech, and women leave tech, Black, Indigenous people of color leave tech, is because of probably the same reasons they're leaving legal. And in the same way of wanting to provide better ways of showing up how you can grow and learn and lead in these industries. I see that as a lot of the same. And I think culturally, some of the similarities and just like what the experiences are. I think legal hasn't done a great job of bringing every voice to the table. I always say that, like, the legal industry centers lawyers, which is totally wrong. It should be centering the community in which it supports. And so trying to, I think tech is an interesting space where it can center too much around tech and not the community it supports. And we've seen a little bit of that over the years, right? And so I think there are a lot of these similarities, and there's a lot of opportunity through what we do daily at Women Who Code, right? To push our industries separately and together to just do better. So
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question, because I think thinking about how, your journey to coming into becoming an engineer, and then others that might be looking to do the same thing. What do you think about people who are hiring, those in leadership positions that are hiring software engineers should know, especially when they're thinking about others from people from other countries, because we're talking about cultural similarities, talking about differences. I think having that awareness and that practice of saying, how can I do better? And what do I need to think about? And what are questions I should be considering are really important. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I would say that remote is a thing now, and most companies are definitely considering remote because they've now realized that working remotely opens them to pool of talent from across the world globally, and that's something interestingly that Nigerians, Africans are also beginning to wake up to, because they are beginning to realize that the competition for talent is no longer the next company, down the street or down the road. It's now like another company in a different continent altogether. So they are also beginning to wake up to what working remotely actually means, and why they should probably embrace it, and why they should begin to offer better benefits to keep their talents, right? And for hiring professionals, right, generally I'm going to speak more to engineers because I've been an engineer, right? But generally I feel like there are different engineers at different levels, right? And because of there's so many skills in software engineering that it can become increasingly difficult for hiring professionals to find the person that like has the experience of the exact skills that they are looking for, right? Which can sometimes cause a strain, right? In finding talent. And what I've found that most innovative and professionals are beginning to look out for engineers with good problem solving skills, who are curious and have a good mindset, irrespective of, but not like irrespective of whether they have the like skill that is the programming language or the necessary skills that they use, because they found that a lot of times engineers, we learn on the job, we upskill on the job. So when you have someone who already who can problem solve, and has a growth mindset and willing to learn through and through, when you hire someone like that, it's easy for the person to learn and upskill as to in whatever skill that they need to learn. So focusing more on the ability for the engineer to learn and upskill on the job. Like I said, as long as the engineer is curious enough to learn new technologies and constantly developing oneself, he or she would definitely be an asset to any team really. And it's also important that, aside from technical abilities and all of that, it's important that the engineer is also team oriented and seeks collaboration, because a lot of times engineers have to work in teams, right? We don't work in isolation, because we have engineers with different, like I said, engineering field is one with very diverse skills. So you often found, engineers with different skills forming a team together and working together to build a product. So it's really, it's why you can't overemphasize the skill. The team. The engineer being a team player, because when the engineer, an engineer with really, really good skills that is not a team player might not be the perfect fit for an organization. So yeah, and it goes both ways. Like I said, companies, engineers are equally looking for companies that has this this culture that has built in some of those things that would help them also to thrive in their professional development and in their in their professional journey, basically.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think curiosity, right? Desire to learn. I agree, like skill set, is important, but you learn just like same for law. You don't go to law school and learn how to practice law. You actually learn how to practice law practicing law, right? And I think we take that perspective. It's the practice of doing what we do and really staying curious and elevating our opportunity to be creative is important. And that teamwork part, which law has got to get better. So I love hearing that, because for those that are like me, that aren't engineers that are looking to come into the space, there might be some thoughts around how they can use some of that same some of your same examples and thoughts on how they can transition too. So
Yeah, and just to add, I mean, a bit more, 'cause I think that like since a lot of companies that are transitioning to remote, diving more on some of the things that are needed for when hiring and looking for this, like I said, communicating and collaborating effectively. Then also a lot of times the engineers also like looking out for where like an engineer that can also work independently, because a lot of times, aside from times when like team is on calls and all that. A lot of times the engineer is working solo, right? From like the part of the world that they're at. So ability for the engineer to work independently and get results, and also having a strong sense of accountability, so that because all of these skills make things seamless and all of that. And of course, and I mean hiring professionals, right? When they are hiring, I think it makes sense that the team members are the time zones where they reside in shouldn't be too far from each other. Maybe, for example, at least there should be a time, right, when they are that time where they can collaborate. For example, let's say they have like a 3 to 4 hours overlap where it's easy for them to have meetings and collaborate on any work necessary. I think this is definitely something to look out for in when forming the teams, especially remote teams, right?
yeah,
To
I
further,
think that's,
yeah. I was
yeah, I
just
was
going
gonna
to add
say,
that to
go
further,
for it. Sorry.
yeah, to further, foster those things that helps physical teams to be successful.
Yeah, I love that. I think, in my journey, I will say, those same qualities are important, and even a part of the reason why, I decided to say yes when asked to being a co-founder, right? Because I want to stay curious, I want to be creative, but I also want to work with someone that wants to be collaborative, particularly in industries that, need to embrace more of that, right? As we're looking to, I mean, everything touches tech,
Yeah.
like the law touches everything, and that
Oh yeah.
means the impact that we each have is tenfold. It's beyond our imagination. So wanting to be able to have that those same those same skills that when someone's thinking to hire is, I believe, the same things that led me to become a tech founder, right? That I would say if someone is interested in thinking about, leveraging their expertise outside of what they're doing to come into this field, or to start a startup, it's those type of things, right? Creativity, curiosity, collaboration, and to know that you're better doing it together because of the same things. Like in a global economy, talent is everywhere. And before, we all thought, well, I'm just gonna, not to say we all thought, but I think, definitely United States, I will say there was a lot of like, we'll focus working on the United States when talent exists everywhere. And when we have more voices, more diverse experiences, what gets built is better. What the impact is greater. And so I would say all those things, thinking about the impact that I can have at scale, being a tech founder, are all pieces for me, similar to you, and similar to what the suggestions you were saying about, those hiring or looking to come into this space, always are looking to consider. So
Yeah, that's an absolute that's a really good comment, because I was going to ask, what I mean, you being a startup founder, right? What one should look out for, but I can see you already touched a bit on that, so I'm going to also ask, what do you think, a startup should look out for when they want to go into funding, when they want to fund, like um what are the things they should look out for, really, basically?
yeah, I would say, one of the things that we think about is like, what's our exit strategy? Like, funding is a part of your growth trajectory. And some people have really strong feelings on, do you self-fund, meaning, you're putting in the equity, you're putting in the time, you're bringing in others who can support you, that collaboration piece, or do you go after those that can help you by injecting a lot of money to scale you faster? And I don't think there's a wrong or right answer. I think it's really just thinking about what makes sense for you, right? What makes sense for the business, what type of impact you want to have. I do believe there's always more power when there's more people at the table, right? When there's more people doing the work. So just go deep and ask yourselves, how do I want to grow? How do I want my impact to be? Can I do this on my own? Do I have the time, the energy, the resources to do that? And if not, then consider what funding looks like, and consider what your ownership you're willing to let go to bring someone in. I think all those are questions and considerations. I know it's something that we talk about as a co-founder of my tech platform, like, you know, the pros and cons of that, and how we want to grow. But I think it's it's a way of growth. It's not the only way. And so making sure it aligns with how you're showing up and giving yourself the space to change your answer too, right? The lawyer in me will say, you know, be a little thoughtful on like how you structure your business, because that can be impactful. But outside of that, make a decision, move forward imperfectly, and then give yourself the grace to change if circumstances change, because that's just the reality of building a tech platform. That's the reality of just, you know, practicing as a lawyer. That's just the reality of living life. I mean, I don't think any of us knew what life would be like a little over 2 years ago, you know? And as someone like you, Temi, who's worked virtual, my law practice is, you know, me practicing law.
Yeah. Okay.
So for practicing law, I've always basically worked in a virtual space. It still was different when the pandemic hit. It's still been a different experience. And so, you know, we have to give ourselves the grace to adjust.
Yeah, I mean, I totally love how you shared that, you know, a lot of funding isn't the only way to grow. And I think I've loved some startups who not only look for funding, like from just people who are willing to bring the money, but people who are also interested in the progress and the, you know, development of the business, who not only bring you know, the money, but also bring their expertise in helping the, you know, startup grow to, you know, I mean, these are people that, you know, venture capitalists and generally mostly people that, you know, also have some experience building some other companies, right? And they bring that expertise in also helping the company grow. And I think those are the best, you know, ways to really take advantage of, you know, those situations, not just the money, but also the expertise of the funders.
Yeah, I mean, listen, resources are important, and whether you are, you know, want to go into an organization or start your own, you being well resourced is an important part of that, right? Through your development, through the people who are supporting you, whether that's mentors, whether that's investors, whether that's leaders in your organization, whether that's your family, your friends, like being well resourced and supported around your well-being, like all that is really important. And I will say, as a Black woman in tech, I also recognize that, you know, I think there's multiple hats. I recognize I'm one of the few that hold a chief legal officer position. I'm one of the few that, you know, is a Black legal tech founder at that, or a Black tech founder. And so just having the space to go through that journey and to have the resources to support you when things are amazing and when things get tough too, right? And so I think all of that is important. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed this conversation. I mean, It's been amazing talking with you. I feel like, you know, it's we could see each other in the work environment, but it's so different just having this chat. So I really hope others, that everyone that's listening has enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed being a participant in it. So let's end with a pro tip. What advice would you give software engineers as they're looking to like continue down their journey of growth and development?
Yeah, I would say that I see that a lot of engineers are beginning to embrace the remote culture even much more. And of course, that's like they are beginning to look out for more remote opportunities, especially, you know, engineers here in Africa as well, looking to, you know, work in the global space, which is an interesting one. So yeah, my advice would be, while searching for those companies that you want to work with, understand that you are of great value. So definitely don't just look for a company that like with the big box that are willing to offer the big box, but also that would help you thrive in your professional career, and also you know, help you achieve your dreams and of course as well with a good culture. And I don't want to use the word balance, like you said, because you don't think, but I mean, I'm so used to using that word for so long that I would also like the one that would also help you, you know, also help you achieve the other things that you want to achieve, and not just in your career life, you know, the one that helps you to create that, I'm not going to use the word, but I would have to, that would help you create the balance that you need. So please bear with me.
It's all right. You know, it's all good. I would say, as someone who I think has been disruptive in my industry and has operated that way. This having a global, a truly global economy, truly where you can work anywhere, work for companies from anywhere, as we are embracing these next stages, the reality is much of what was built didn't have the diversity, the inclusion that was needed to build the things, right? Whether that's building the law or building the tech. And so my thought would be, whether you're an engineer, I'm not an engineer, or if you're someone that is not in that space, but coming into tech space or becoming a tech founder, I would say, don't be afraid to learn. Well, first learn how things operate, and then don't be afraid to break the status quo.
Yeah, absolutely.
Meaning,
yeah,
right? Because here's the thing. Things weren't always built with all the voices, with all the experiences. And this is the opportunity to now, once you learn how it was built, to say, but what if we did it different? What would it look like if, instead of us doing it this way, from my experience, I could do it another way? And I'll just give a quick example just from growing up. I'm a New Yorker, and in New York, we always had dollar cabs, right? It was always a thing. And a dollar cab, basically, it did the same like route as a bus route. And you would pay $1 to go into a cab that you shared with 3 or 4 people. You could sit 5 people, the driver is sitting, and then there's 3 or 4 other seats. Fast forward today, what does that sound like? Sounds pretty familiar, right? But that existed growing up. And I think the reality is we have a lot of experience we can share. So if I had a pro tip, is learn it, and then don't be afraid to break the status quo.
Absolutely. I totally love that. I mean, I think that's been my mantra as well, which has helped me be where I am today. And I think everyone should definitely embrace that. Do not be afraid to speak up, to speak out, to break the status quo, and also shatter the ceilings when necessary. Like, yeah, we want more women at the top, like Kim and many more women doing big things and introducing new stuff to tech,
as well as you, Temi.
Absolutely. It's been really nice having this conversation. Thank you so much for the beautiful. It's been really nice finding a lot of things that we share in common, and knowing a lot more about you.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. All those that are listening to this conversation and feel inspired by this, and during Black History Month, as we shared our journeys, and even as we continue to walk on those journeys right now. So subscribe to our podcast, check out our YouTube channel for more Black History Month content and technical and career related videos.